500 horsepower and 630 pound-feet of torque. That's how much power this new 2020 Lincoln Aviator Grand Touring plug-in hybrid develops. And today in this video, we're gonna go over all the really cool features and we're gonna take it on the road to see what an SUV with almost as much torque as a Hellcat feels like in the real world. This right here is the business end of things with the Aviator, because under the hood you'll find a 3-liter twin-turbo V6, and then in the transmission you'll find a 75 kilowatt or about 100 horsepower electric motor. But that motor is fed through the standard J1772 plug, which of course sends its power to a 13.6 kilowatt hour battery pack with an EPA estimate of 18 miles of range on all electric driving. Of course, you don't have to get the hybrid in the Aviator, but at over 600 pound-feet of torque, why would you not want it? And you can always tell a hybrid from a standard one because you have this blue background on the Lincoln emblem as well as along the side. Okay, so this is my first time in the Aviator, genuinely first time accelerating in 3, 2, 1, full throttle. Wow! That really takes off. You feel that 630 pound-feet of torque punch you in the butt, and that's because you have that electric motor assisting the drivetrain, which means instantaneous torque there. I love that.
Our clients aren't so concerned about fuel economy. They want good, respectable fuel economy, but it's not top in their purchase decisions. They do like power and performance. How do we provide this as what we call a step-up performer from our base model, which is already great, right, with 400 horsepower? And so that's why we intentionally used a different engine architecture from the standpoint of what our competitors do that might be a smaller displacement i4. No, we're going to give you a big, potent 3-liter twin turbocharged V6, and then we're going to match it to the electrified portions of the powertrain so we can combine them. Because people, I think, are more interested in that as a relevant solution for, call it a smarter performance vehicle.
One of the coolest new features on the Aviator is something called Phone as a Key, which, just like the Tesla system, now allows you to use your phone with Bluetooth enabled as the key for the vehicle. So it does away with this old school fob completely. But if you do want to use the old school fob, you can. And one of the wackiest features is actually here in the door. If, for example, your fob battery dies, for example, or your vehicle battery dies and you need to get into the electric door, you can stick the key into this mystery little hole on the side and bam, pop it open. And the reason you need this is because the door is all electric. So there's a little button on the inside of the door handle. There's a little button on the inside here. It's all very sci-fi, and it's even soft close. So what if your phone battery dies? Well, you can actually use this keypad right here to get inside the vehicle, like Ford has been doing for decades now. But there's even a keypad on the inside you can use to start the vehicle if, for example, you lose your phone or you don't have it on you. So in pure EV, I can drive along happily, but if I floor it, oh, look at that. Press OK to enable engine. So in pure EV mode, that's floored 40, 45, 48. It's not very quick in pure EV mode. It says press OK to enable engine, and when you do, that's when it really takes off. Yeah, it really does take off well, and it also is a 10-speed automatic transmission, so I have a lot of gear ratios to really maximize the performance of the gas engine and electric motor. Now, it's not quite as firm as something like an X5 on the road, so it doesn't handle, I think, as well as something like an X5 or X7. But I think that's what's great about the Aviator. It has its own distinct feel. It feels very Lincoln, and in the past that used to mean pretty much nothing because the Lincolns were largely rebadged Fords. But I love the fact that this feels like a bespoke, complete ground-up model. It doesn't feel like any of its competition, but it also doesn't feel like a Ford Explorer.
What's the difference between the Aviator and the Explorer? They're built basically on the same chassis, same architecture.
Yeah, so we call it the same architecture, yeah. But even within that architecture, the front suspensions and geometries are different. We have a true SLA suspension up front. They use a McPherson strut front end. The rear suspension, again, while it shares an architecture design, we optimize the rear hardpoints in that suspension for Aviator to improve ride even more. Those were some of the focus points in terms of how do we develop that architecture to deliver what the client wants. You'll uniquely find our dynamic handling package on Aviator that includes the air suspension, adaptive suspension, our road preview feature. You won't find any of that on the Explorer product. On the inside, a sanctuary design. You won't see shared components there. All of the switches are unique. So many things. Our head-up display, our phone is a key feature, even our e-latch door handles and soft closing doors. All of those things are unique. We really were trying to curate this quiet flight experience. The Explorer customers, we serve a very different clientele.
So being premium, it competes with vehicles like the Audi Q7, the Volvo XC90, so you expect to see some high-end luxury features, and you do. For example, you've got these little shades in the back here, and you even have a special little screen back here that controls the rear zones for the automatic climate control, heated and ventilated rear seats, and even in the middle here you have two different center console options. This one is just a standard cup holder, but you can get a nice armrest as well, depending on which trim you get. The interior of the Aviator is beautifully sculpted, and everything you touch is really high quality. Well, just about everything you touch. You have a 12-inch display here in the middle. You also have a 10-inch display for your infotainment screen. You have a bunch of different options for material choices across the dash here. I mean, it really does feel premium. And my favorite premium touch on this interior are the chimes. Because this noise right here, that chime is actually orchestrated by the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and it changes a little bit depending on what the situation is, but it's much better than the standard Ford chime in my opinion.
Car today, you get low on fuel and it gives you a warning. Hey, your fuel is low. We said, why don't instead we do something that's positive with that information? We can, one, let you know that you're getting low on fuel, but why don't we also ask you, would you like to find the nearest fuel station? Why don't I just give you a prompt within the instrument cluster that says, find the nearest fuel station, and a couple of clicks will set that navigation waypoint in there and it'll take you there, as opposed to doing that all independent. So part of our process was make those interactions very human, try to make them effortless.
There's a lot going on these seats in the Aviator. They're 30-way power adjustable seats. I can make them do things that you just can't do in other cars. For example, only the top rest will move forward. I can move individual thigh support cushions at any given time. You know, the bolsters move. There is just so much and so many ways you can configure these seats. I almost feel like it's a little bit too much though. I mean, I can't think of 30 ways to do anything. So whenever I sit in this vehicle, I always get a little fussy and I can never get quite comfortable because I always feel like I'm missing something. It's just a lot. In this Aviator, we have several different drive modes ranging from excite to conserve to even, check this out, in off-road mode or deep conditions. And in deep conditions, it'll actually raise the suspension. The air suspension in this vehicle is 80 millimeters of up and down travel in terms of variation. But I also have something called Preserve EV, which will save the EV battery for later on in a journey, and also Pure EV, which allows me to use nothing but the electric power. Being a large 3-row family hauling SUV, we need to talk about the third row. The second row folds out of the way electronically like that, and then we've got these headrests that pop up for the third row. And I gotta tell you, it's not terrible. My knees are a little bit too high up in my face here, but the headroom is pretty good because the roof is scalloped. I even have some cup holders and some vents way back here. So not a terrible place to spend time at all. Just like the German auto manufacturers, you have to pull the hood release twice to get it to open. And the actual hood itself is aluminum, which means in order to close it, you really got to slam it. Even the engineer told us that. He said, you really got to put your back into it. But that means we've got a lot of exotic materials exotic materials in the Aviator, which reduces weight. This vehicle in hybrid form weighs 700 pounds more than the non-hybrid, and it comes in at under 4,800 pounds. With over 200 pound-feet more of torque than the standard Aviator, you'd expect the Grand Touring Hybrid to be the towing champion, but it isn't. It tows 5,600 pounds, which is significantly less than the non-hybrid model. And why does it tow less? Well, we asked the engineer that, and he said it's because the battery's heavy, it reduces payload from the vehicle, you can't tow as much. How does it compare to the Cadillac XT6? Well, check out my link below to watch that video. And in case you're wondering, this vehicle is in dealerships right now. As always, this is Tommy with TFL Car. Go back to tflcar.com for more news, views, and real world reviews.